Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast alongside Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. This podcast, as usual, brought to you by our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Level, summertime has arrived officially on the calendar. I'll never understand the whole summertime thing because summer started like at the end of May when it started hitting 90 degrees, but they tell us that it's officially hit in June, and now we've got some summertime sports topics, which includes a lot of recruiting. Some all Big 12 lists are floating out there before the official ones come out, and of course we have our weekly Ben Henschel question that pops up every week now. So plenty of things to get into. How are we today?
We're good, man. I guess. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody, scrambling around a little bit, but
Yeah, for sure.
let's start off with recruiting because it seems like this is, the camps are kind of wrapping up as we close out towards July. Most of the big camps are wrapping up. There's a lot of visits that have happened. We've had some questions on just some generic questions level we've received on, okay, how is Texas Tech doing in the recruiting class? Do we have any big names that still could commit over the coming days or weeks? So I'll just kind of toss the recruiting ball up to you and let you take it where you want it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I think July 4th is potentially is a week for announcements, not just Texas Tech, but just in general. That's kind of the way a lot of these kids go, is they spend a lot of the at least the new way of doing things. This is a whole different deal.
Sure.
But than it used to be when it all, like, you're taking visits maybe in the summer, but maybe during football season, or maybe in December and January, and then it all builds to 1st of February, and coaches are showing up to somebody's house, and it's like trying to flip them or trying to hold on to them, and then everybody waits till the first Wednesday in February. But we're in a different place now. So the month of June is arguably the busiest recruiting month of the year for college staffs and everything. And Coach McGuire, and you have your camps, you have visits every weekend, whether it's in the middle of the week or the weekend, and then you in most cases you have a good feel for what your class is going to be or what it's not going to be. And I think that's the case here. I don't know if I have a good feel yet for how this will be, like, divided up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we're all trying to figure that out. I think this is, with the rules changing, are you less likely to go to the portal now? Or are you gambling that no, we're still going to do our thing there? Will there be less movement in the portal in general? And so is the emphasis, is it indeed back on high school recruiting? And I think with Tech, either way, without us knowing the exact answers, and again, the answers could change.
Right.
The answers could, you can kind of morph and tweak and change, and new situations present themselves. But there's going to be a happy medium here. I don't think you're all in on one or the other as far as talent acquisition.
Yeah.
I do think you'll have a heavy play in the portal. I just don't know if I can define heavy, because heck, even up until late November last year, yeah, we're going to get 8 to 10 pieces. You ended up with 20 or 20 plus, and you still added in so I do think there's a chance for some high school kids to make some announcements, some of which may say Texas Tech in the coming weeks after once we get into July 4th week. And some even further into July. And not every player will commit early before their season starts and things like that. So, those are, I think, all it's a moving target, and I wish I could like nail it down and say you're going to take this number of high school kids and this number of portal kids. But as I said, heck, the head coach is sitting up there with a microphone in front of him and TV cameras there, and he's like, "Yeah, 8 to 10, maybe 12." And you look up, and it's what was it, 21, 22,
Yeah.
23?
Yeah.
You know, by the time you added
Whole lot.
a receiver and an offensive lineman in the spring, and heck, even a dual threat punter kicker,
Right.
that wasn't originally, Ian Hershey. People are like, "Who's that?" Well, yeah, he's on your team now. He kicked a field goal against you at Arizona State last year here in Lubbock.
He
So,
did.
yeah. So, no, I hate to give like a non-answer or not nailed down answer, but that's a difficult one to kind of pin down on kind of what all that will look like. But yeah, recruiting is the visits are large in part mostly over with. Um, and so anyway, that's I don't know if I've totally answered your question, but or the question, but I tried.
There is one specific to a certain player. We talked about him a little bit, I think, before in previous weeks, but a question here comes from Jason saying, "What are the chances that we land Chase Campbell from Friendship? And if we do, how much of an impact player is he in the future?"
I think I've this was an interesting one because it's kind of changed. I would have told you a couple of weeks ago that it was going to be large in part Tech and Arkansas.
Hmm.
I think recently I would tell you that Baylor may be the favorite. I think North Carolina is involved.
Hmm.
I don't think Oklahoma State is a player here, even though he took a visit there. And
Sure.
then there's Kansas State, which I'm not there's some relationships there with Coach Wells and
Hmm.
and whatnot. Um, so I don't know. I'd be willing to. I don't think Tech is any kind of favorite here. In fact, they may not be, even though he's here. His mom works in the athletic department and all those things. He grew up in Waco. Um, Yeah, so good question. I can see him wanting to get away for
Okay.
different reasons. Um, I mean, he's a potentially an impact player. I mean, you call his games, or you've seen him. I've coached him in
Yeah.
basketball before. Great kid, really good athlete.
Sure.
I don't know if we're talking about drop everything you're doing. This guy's like a no-brainer.
Hmm.
Whatever. A lot of these kids at this level are like this. He's got a ranking next to him and he's got some offers and whoever gets him is going to put him in their machine and we'll see what happens. I think most have recruited him as a wideout. I think some are actually talking about potentially some defense or some dual role. I mean, so I think there's a lot on the table there, but
Yeah.
um, I guess as we sit here and talk right now, I guess I won't be surprised if he ends up in Waco,
Okay.
but again, Arkansas because his parents have ties there, Tech because everybody's got ties here,
Hmm.
but maybe wants to get away. So we'll kind of see where this takes us. And I don't know what his I think he's getting close to a decision, but I don't know. Here's what else is fascinating, Woodman, is that speaking of the new rules in recruiting and everybody is basically talking to these players and talking to them about a contract. They're talking to them about rev share.
Hmm.
And I think every school may have a different idea on what that looks like for a
Sure.
true freshman.
Sure. Yeah.
I think some schools have said, you know what, we're going to get this kid. We're going to offer him, we're going to money whip everybody with our rev share numbers. Other schools are saying, we're trying to pay all of our freshmen that haven't done anything. We like them, but they haven't done anything because we're trying to save the bulk of our rev share for guys that have played and will
Yep.
play and are playing and have produced. And so it's tricky. So good question on kind of what that looks like. I mean, because I would say to you that in this example, I'd be willing to bet you that it's not a cookie cutter offer on just a scholarship from Tech, from Baylor, from Arkansas, from Kansas State, from North Carolina. I bet those are all different with all different,
Yeah,
multi-year,
sure.
more rev share. Um, I mean, it's so it's like, do I want to go here and I'm locked up for 2 years? Do I want to go here and make more money initially? Do I want to go here because this is where I want to live and play and
Yeah.
I like the coach? I mean, it's not just scholarship to scholarship offers being made everywhere.
And it's not just money to money either. Like some people think it is all about the dollar, and I think that is a big impact, obviously. But you just outlined plenty of reasons, especially for a true freshman, a freshman coming out of high school, that they've got to consider. So yeah, I think that's good info there. Mark from Twitter says, "Talk NIL Go from this perspective. A program signs a student athlete. He or she is under an agreement from that point. If denied, is the student athlete still a free agent when it comes to the NIL uh, clearinghouse stuff?"
Well, you're not. These are okay. So I think that's part of the confusion there. You are already on a campus if you're getting an NIL deal, and then you're getting a separate. These are separate deals for athletes already on campus or in a program. Like nothing that the NIL Go does ties this athlete to a school.
Hmm.
These are extras. This is off to the side. This has had nothing to do with your scholarship or rev share with your school or your contract with your school. This is like, hey man, I came to school here and I'm going to get above and beyond on through an NIL Go, through
Yeah.
Nike or through Gene Messer Ford or Cantex Roofing or whatever. And so this isn't going to determine whether you are
Well done there.
linked to an institution or not. Yeah, shout out to Cantex Roofing. They are, I'm sure, very busy these days. Hail, man, Hail can kiss
Oh,
the backside of me because it is not,
oh
geez,
no, man.
man, very frustrating. No
Um,
endearing qualities whatsoever for hail damage.
I'm with you.
Yeah, so sheesh. So anyway, so I think because that's what they're asking, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, see,
The
and so
NIL Go.
I just think that that's where it's a bit confusing. So it's a totally separate thing. The NIL Go, okay, so let's try to troubleshoot this, and let's say, for example, there's an athlete that's not tied to a school. Maybe theoretically, maybe you could, like, I don't know, on behalf of, see, because the school is the one that's sending in the NIL Go. They're the ones that are submitting the paperwork to the NIL Go clearinghouse and all that stuff. So I don't even think in theory you could say, okay, what if this player, let's try to get him an NIL deal. Let's see if we can go ahead and push it through. And then and if it works, okay, then we've got him. I don't think that's how the order of events would be allowed to go. You follow me?
Yeah, I think that it's it's still super confusing, but I think you have to separate the NIL from the rev sharing. Anytime you see those two words, that's what I've kind of learned to do is just separate those two because NIL is truly trying to go back to what it's supposed to be. I mean, it's not actually, but it's about individuals, and rev sharing is about kind of a collective team type of thing.
Right.
Right. So, okay, Level. We had a few all Big 12 lists, and since you and I last talked, I mean, Athlon's put out theirs. We've seen Phil Steele do his four teams that he does. You're seeing a lot of Red Raider flavor on these lists. Um, David Bailey and Jacob Rodriguez kind of consistently your top two players on these lists. Are those the top two players in your mind for Texas Tech going into the 2025 season?
On paper,
Yeah. Do you think they will be the best two players for Texas Tech in 2025? Or
And you said David Bailey and Jacob Rodriguez?
Yes, those are the
In other
two
word,
that
in other words, okay,
that
let me ask you to dig in a little deeper here. Is really the question who will be what players will be first team All Big 12?
yeah, like
Is that fair
who's most
to
likely to be on that list at the end of the season? I guess would be the
okay.
fair question. Yeah. Is that how
Yeah,
you would peg it?
yeah, I mean it's a really good question because you're having to project um and I think David Bailey may be the highest draft pick. He may not be like a locked in first team All Big 12, so it's kind of a different
Okay. Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It doesn't mean he was not your best player, but maybe
Sure.
okay. So of the players that I would be thinking about, because here's the thing, I could probably give you 12 to 15 names and
Hmm.
realistically argue really good cases for them. As you know, this isn't how it works.
No.
That's not, I mean, at some point, not unless if you go 11-1 or 12-0, then it can work like that or close
Sure.
to it.
Sure.
But that's what it has to come with. It has to come with like, man, they were just better than everybody, and all these dudes were the reason why. Um, I think Howard Sampson as an offensive tackle, although he's going to have some competition from the dudes at Utah.
Hmm.
Um, I think I think Caleb Douglas, again, if he's ready to be wide receiver one, I
Look,
think
something that people probably don't realize about Caleb Douglas is that he returns the second most production of any individual at receiver in the Big
um,
12.
I think a lot of people don't know that. I
Yeah,
mean,
Jordan Tyson and then Caleb Douglas. Those are the top
yeah,
two.
he's been slept on.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
again, I think that it's fair to say, hey, if he's going to take the next step, he needs to be a bit more consistent.
Sure.
There needs to be some more like I think like Josh Kelly's what he did on third down.
Oh yeah.
There's a clutch component there,
Agree.
and I think that's Caleb Douglas is going to have to answer that bell a bit. Like, hey man, it's 3rd and 8, gotta have you
Yeah.
make a play, and I may not be able to throw it perfect, but go up and get it, go down and get it, go off to the side and get it, but just get it. And there's some of that I think. But I think he has a chance. I think he should be. He's not necessarily. He's been like some second team, and there's people projecting this and that. But I think he should be first season or first team All Big 12 preseason. But I don't know if he'll get the nod there or not. I think you know who's an interesting one. You mentioned Phil Steele a bit ago, and like I'm
Hmm.
gonna look here. Okay, I want to make sure. This is a player that is listed as preseason second team All Big 12.
Okay.
And I will tell you that he is viewed as, I'm going to say surprisingly, because it was surprising to me, one of the most athletic players on the team. As far as like weight room or how quickly he can move or based on how much he weighs, whatever, squat, bench, GPS, whatever you want to look at. And yet Phil still has him second team All Big 12. And then I'm adding into the fact that, internally he's thought of and this is a player that I think wasn't supposed to be here, one, and two,
Okay.
I think they were trying to recruit over. And that's DaVon Carter.
Uh-huh.
Because not only has he's smaller than your normal power 5 or power 4
Hmm.
offensive guard. And um I think that whenever I found out he's going to get an extra year, we may have even talked about this on this show,
Sure.
that I thought, I mean, great depth piece. I
Hmm.
mean, and
I think
yet,
you
yet,
said those exact words. Yeah.
yeah, and
Then
you're protected. It's an insurance policy. It's like, man, the more the merrier. We get more guys that have played with experience, and this is a good thing. And
sure.
he may have been exactly why, like the Nick Fatigs and a few others like transferred out. But all he did is he's basically kind of been penciled slash pinned in as that starter at right guard since the beginning of spring, and it's never wavered. And I don't think there's any question as to the fact that that's his spot. And yet he's maybe got a pretty good potential candidacy to be a first team All Big 12 guy at the end of the year.
Level, I actually saw his name on, I think it was an ESPN,
It's a draft
the
board.
draft. Yeah, the draft board. He as listed as one of the top five guards for the 25 class coming out, or
And I
26 class.
mean, in no way is he normally, he's just a bit shorter, a bit
Yeah, he's
smallish.
smaller
Yeah, and I just I don't know if I necessarily buy into that, just because the NFL is a measurables league, and it's like, man,
often. Yep.
you have to look the part sometimes even before you are any good or not. I think he's very technical. I think people around there would tell you he's a really good football player, but he's just not
Mhm.
as big and lengthy and longer arms and all that stuff is typically it looks. But anyways, it took me a while to get there, but like he's another candidate for first team All
Okay.
Big 12, and probably one that most people would not consider. But Phil Steele sure thinks he's close.
Yep.
NFL draft folks think he's close. Um, Internally, I mean, you brought in all these dudes, Jadis and Zambrano, and you
Hmm.
got, I mean, think about it. Did we ever in our wildest dreams think about that you would start camp out when all were healthy, that Vinny Scurry wouldn't even be a starter on this offensive line?
No, no.
And that may be what you're staring at. And part of that is because of DaVon Carter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not solely, but part of it. So
Yeah. I
anyway.
think, and there's all sorts of things coming out. The video games ratings came out this week, or
Oh
have
yeah,
been.
those are the holy grail.
So
Yeah,
you see
yeah.
that, and I mean, you see these guys' names. Actually, there was one pretty interesting one on the video games rating. So there are two guys in the top 100. Um, oh, I've got it brought up. David Bailey was a 93, I believe, for this college football game that's coming out next month sometime, and Jacob Rodriguez was a 91. So those two guys coming up at the top again. But someone that was pretty high on the list for Texas Tech was your quarterback. Baron Morton was an 87, which was I think six points higher or whatever than last year. That's a pretty big leap. And I feel like you mentioned under the radar. Baron Morton has flown under the radar a lot, and I think there's a lot of people that are apprehensive to put any stock in him because of the surgery. But I've heard so many people level talk about Morton this year or this offseason as if he was hurt all of last season. It's just kind of weird. He's your first quarterback to play 12 games in a season in a really long time since
Well,
Patrick Mahomes.
he was hurt, but he was still playing. And I
Sure.
say
Sure.
he wasn't hurt in that not medically cleared, but he 100% no, or otherwise he wouldn't have had to have gotten elective surgery. I mean,
Right.
ask him if he was allowed to get in the weight room at all with his teammates,
Yeah.
or do certain things. The answer is no. And so, but yeah, he wasn't. And he, to his credit, he never complained about it. The left side of his offensive line was bad,
Hmm.
like really bad. And um and the thing about Barron is he's 14-4 as a starter.
When he
14 and
finishes
4.
games, right?
Yeah, when he starts
Yeah.
and finishes games, he's
Yeah.
14-4. I mean, like, yeah, the TCU game, for example, last year doesn't count
Right.
against him
When he
because
when he
he
starts and
started it
finishes.
and didn't
Yeah.
finish it. Yeah, that's right. So but yeah, I mean, so yeah, it's funny. I wasn't thinking we would. I mean,
I didn't mean to bring it up. Yeah.
odds are you would really have to go 11-1 or 12-0 for your quarterback to get that nod because I mean, there's some legitimate,
Sure.
Rocco Becht, Sam Levitt, Avery Johnson, the Devin Dampier, the Utah kid that everybody
Sawyer
seems to really
Robertson.
like, Sawyer Roberts. I mean, there's a lot of names, so he would have to statistically and win total whip a lot of these guys to get that nod. But I guarantee you, he won't care as long as you're winning. So
Sure.
whatever comes with that.
No doubt.
Defensively, Bryce Pollock or Pollock. I'm not
Oh,
sure. I'm still learning how to say that. I think Lee Hunter. I
yeah.
think David Bailey, obviously. I think Cole Wisniewski, and obviously we mentioned Jacob Rodriguez. Um,
Another one that's getting tossed about. I know you're on defense, but Terence Carter is one that's a popular name in the offseason. And I think he was really high on those video game
and
ratings for anybody that
his
cares.
his deal is okay. I think he could get Jason Morrowed here.
Okay.
And I say that because remember when Jason Morrow in like what was it 11 or 12,
Yep.
it's like, hey man,
The Mackey Award.
sorry, yeah, we're not really gonna even consider him because he's not really a tight end.
Doesn't
Well,
have his hand in the dirt enough. That's what they said.
dumbest thing ever.
Yeah.
Like get over it. Football is changing. Wake the heck up, man.
Yeah.
So but he is a speaking of different sizes and shapes, like this is a DaVon Carter thing. I mean, he's like what, 6'2", close to 6'3", I bet
Hmm.
closer to 6'2", and he's probably 240, 245,
Yeah.
and can really move. And I do think, like, is he a wideout? Is he a tight end? Is he just a ball player? Yes.
Yeah.
As it relates to this conversation, I'd love to know like what exactly he would be considered for purposes of filling out a ballot because I think he'll be flexed out. I think he'll have his hand in the ground. I think he'll be lined up in the backfield. Um, so like his importance to a team or his um, what he means to the offense or his productivity and all that stuff, and maybe he just puts up so many numbers that you're like, okay, we're finding a place for him. I don't know, but I think that's worth pointing out as it relates to TC there.
Sure.
And I do think he is a major what I would consider like X factor
Yeah.
with your offense. I think he's they're different, but in many ways, like he and Jacoby Williams are going to be very similar
Okay.
in that let's figure out ways to incorporate these guys, and it may be lined up at different places. So we'll
Yeah.
kind of see what that looks like. And I guess I went through the list on defense, but like it's weird because we haven't mentioned Romello Height. We
True.
haven't mentioned Skylar Gill Howard. I just think there's some of these guys that are really,
Hmm.
really good, but I feel dumb like mentioning all of them because this is just not how it works.
But it may be how it works with this particular team. If David Bailey's drawing a double team every time, guys like Romello Height are going to get great opportunities.
I
And
don't think you can double anybody on this defensive line and feel good about it.
yeah, and I mean, that's why you continue to see these things. We talked about it last time, but these these lists and these rankings of entire Texas Tech defensive line on these graphics that you see out. It's just everybody's kind of like, I can't pick one. We got to go with all of them because it's that good of a defensive line. It's
Yeah.
it's in conversations with some of the better ones you're seeing in the SEC. So it's territory we're not used to. And with your defensive line here. One more question level, and we'll break out here. This one came from Matthew. It says, "Can the Big 12 get more than one team into the college football playoff this year?"
Yes, but I think the pathway to that is going to be very tricky. That's going to come with help elsewhere. It's unlikely. I just think people need to be prepared for that.
Yeah,
I think you may have several teams that just miss, but that's going to be kind of the common theme, I think, going forward. Oh man, just they were almost,
right there.
yeah. But
So it
I
would
think
level it essentially take someone having a 12-0 or maybe an 11-1 season, maybe losing in the championship game to someone lesser, and then you get two teams in, one with an auto and one.
well, I don't know exactly what it would take because I think that some of that is dictated by I can even see that scenario to where you still don't get a second team in If
Sure.
if everything else, if you're wanting two teams, these are the things you need to root for. You need to root for Notre Dame to have a terrible season.
Mhm.
One, two, you need to root for chaos in the month of November.
Yeah.
And you need to root for like favorites, or in most cases, I should say, you need to root for like the favorites or the shoe-in that's already made it
Yeah.
or is going to make it no matter what in the Big Ten and the SEC to win those title games. You
True.
don't need you don't need somebody like to pull off an upset in those title games. Again, if you're trying to create more runway for a second Big 12 team. There's some scenarios where this could happen. I'm just trying to be a realist here, and I think
Hmm.
it's just a bit unlikely.
Well, and Coach McGuire's talked about this publicly recently. I mean, the logo bias and the stuff that comes with what league you play in.
Oh
If
yeah,
if you had a bunch of teams in the top 10 to start the preseason, that changes everything. I mean,
yeah.
if
No,
you,
it's a flawed. I mean, again, and they're trying to. I mean, Woodman, they are. We've heard a lot of the back to the drawing board part for the CFP.
yeah,
And maybe it stays status quo and it stays at 12 teams, like past this year, which they're trying to figure out. They've got till
yeah,
December the 1st. So they're trying to figure out, okay, they're trying to take it's like the SEC wants more taken. They want more taken out of the committee's hands. They want the committee to have less say,
yeah,
but they want more because everybody was going to do the AQ thing, and that's what the Big Ten wants. And now the SEC's kind of pivoted and being like, yeah, we don't want that. Anyway, but now they're trying to figure, okay, well, how do we determine the at-large? If we're not doing the AQ, how do we determine the at-large? And so it's everything from strength of schedule metrics to I've this flies all over me because this is also extremely flawed because I've
hmm
been involved in this system for 20 plus years. There's even some discussion that they were going to factor in recruiting rankings
that's that's
into
silly.
choosing.
My
Yeah,
goodness.
I
Yeah.
mean, and that's. I mean, I'm in the middle of that. I don't agree with every recruiting ranking that our
Hmm.
network is involved with,
Sure.
and it placates to the blue bloods and the favorites at times, in my
Hmm.
opinion. So yeah, I don't know how what we end up with at the end of the day, but I do think it is worth monitoring. But I do think it is certainly because you know what worked. I didn't mean to. Do we
No,
have
you
we
go.
covered the original question? Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
on a
I think
tangent.
we covered it. That
Okay, because you know what really worked as far as the CFP goes? The
what's that?
BCS, the BCS computers. But you know what the flaw was in those computers? It only got to pick two teams.
Right.
Now we're asking it to pick me, you know, seven teams.
Yep.
And it factored in a lot of different things,
Sure.
polls and strength of schedule and head
Sure.
to head and
Sure.
all this stuff. I'm not so certain that that it wasn't correctly figured out back then. The problem back then, though, is that it only would hit you with it only spit out two
Right.
names. Now it's going to spit out many more than that, and if they go to 16 teams, it'll spit out. I guess it would. It's the 5-11 deal would be
Yeah.
11 at large. That's if they added to the playoff format and all that stuff, which is kind of what they've talked about. So I don't know, but I just it's worth pointing out because that
Oh,
that system
you're not
took a lot
wrong.
of it took a lot of grief over the years. Everybody had an issue with who was third or fourth, or this is messy, or they got the nod because they were ranked second in the deal, but all that. But anyway, if we step back a little bit, and then now we are asking to pick 11, based on all this criteria. I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. It would take a lot of biases out that are
Yeah.
making college football frustrating.
And a cheaper bill at the Gaylord Hotel,
That's true.
with a lot of game watching and buffets and
Everybody's trying to save money right now, so I think you're onto something.
all I'm saying.
Level, great stuff as usual, man. Appreciate you.
Okay, well, I appreciate you, Woodman. Shout out to Cantex Roofing. Go get an NIL deal with Cantex and all that stuff. I think we worked that in
It's a
a
good
bit,
time
but
too. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. That's right. All right, man. We will do this again this coming weekend,
There we
and
go.
yeah, next week. And keep hope alive. Hopefully, nobody out there had hail damage like Woodman and I did, but such is life.
Such is life.
Yeah, that's right.
That's Chris Level. I'm Choice Woodman. This has been the Ask Level podcast brought to you by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.